In this video, we're going to take a look at a blue ink by Montblanc Permanent Blue. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the blue ink playlist, so if you wanted to see more, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen. We are seeing some darker spots in the shading of the extra fine, and we are seeing it in the medium, not so much in the stub. The extra fine took only 8 seconds to dry, and the medium took 14. Scrubby for both are showing us some color variation in the far left to far right. We definitely get that in the writing, and the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Platinum 3776 with a broad nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, some very light shading going on in the extra fine, a little better shading going on in the medium. Definitely get to go darker with that medium. The extra fine took 10 seconds to dry. It's a lot lighter than the stub. Medium took 17 seconds to dry. It's about the same tone as the stub. Even the stub's giving us very nice shading. Scrubby for both show good color variation. We're definitely getting it in the writing. But the smear test, I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. Now the one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down and then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And it bonded immediately with the paper. It didn't move at all. I think this is one of the most permanent blue inks that I've seen. Look at the one on the right. There's no difference between them because you can't bond more than all at once. We may expect a little bit of resistance here. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen. We do get good shading in the stub. You see it in permanent. In the extra fine, you see it all over. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub. The medium being the same tone as the stub. We're really not seeing much shading, but there's little spots of it, like when you look at the word brown. The extra fine took 8 seconds to dry, while the medium took 13. The scrubby for both do show a little bit of color variation, although I think it shows up much nicer in the extra fine writing. And the smear test, you have a slim chance of recovery if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, have no fear if you're going to use this in a note-taking situation. It will not budge. It is great. By all means, yes, it is a little pricey, but you are protecting your notes. For sure. Water did nothing. Pen flush did nothing. 1/3 bleach solution moved it a little bit. Now, for all of that resistance and for being a Montblanc ink, you wouldn't expect it to have a problem cleaning out of your pen. And here, it didn't. It cleaned right out with water with no problem, just like you would expect, despite how amazingly permanent this ink is. The next writing sample is done on TWSBI notebook paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, some very interesting shading in the extra fine. It goes from a mid-tone blue to very dark blues, and from very darks back down to mid-tones. We get that in the extra fine and in the medium, but in the stub, it's all dark. The extra fine is a little bit darker than the stub, while the medium is the extra fine's a little bit lighter than the stub, while the medium's a little bit lighter than the extra fine. The extra fine took 5 seconds to dry, and the medium took 8 seconds to dry. Now, the scrubby for both show a little bit of color variation. I just think that the shading shows up much better in the writing. And the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, and the realm of normal was 2.1 to 2.9. Montblanc's Permanent Blue has a viscosity of 2.68, making it normal. If you're interested in how all the viscosity tests and the bell curve and all that's done, there's a link to that video down in the description. But up next is the paper that I love to say, monokaki. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen. We do get shading in the stub. In the extra fine, it looks very good in the extra fine. We get it in the medium. It looks good here, better here. All of these are about the same tone. The extra fine took about 7 seconds to dry, while the medium took about 10 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show a tiny bit of color variation, and it is tiny, but I think it stands out better in the writing. The smear test says you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Montblanc's Permanent Blue had an average dry time of 12 seconds, meaning it dries just a little bit faster than normal. The last writing sample is done on Leuchtturm 1917 paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen. Now, shading shows up in the extra fine. It shows up a little bit in the stub. Doesn't really show itself in the medium. The extra fine, while it has it, it goes from a nice light blue to dark blue. The extra fine's a lot lighter than the stub, which makes it possible, and the medium is even darker than the stub is. The extra fine took 8 seconds to dry, while the medium took 12 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows a lot more color variation than the medium. The medium only shows a tiny bit. We don't get any of it in the writing for medium, but we get plenty in the writing for the extra fine. The scrubby for both show, the smear test for both show that you probably could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Montblanc's Permanent Blue, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a nice magenta ink by Diamine, their Amaranth. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Montblanc's Permanent Blue? This is a very nice tone that brings a bunch of shading and super permanent, makes this ink a winner. If you need a permanent and blue, consider Montblanc's Permanent Blue. It's worth the cost. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? I see this as an all-around winner, no matter what you put it into. It's really a dealer's choice. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Diamine's Firestorm Red.